The task of replying to David's toast falls to Sandra Valentine. We've spoken this evening about friends returning to the club, and Sandra isn't quite returning to the club for a second time, but is almost returning to the club for a second time, which is almost akin to President George asking if anybody's visited another club during the previous week and being told that yes, we did visit another club, but nobody was in. Sandra should have been here last year, but unfortunately her husband Ian fell ill on their way on holiday and she wasn't able to come along. We're delighted that not only is Ian better and is able to join us, but that Sandra also is able to come back and fulfil what we had hoped she was going to do last year. There are two reasons why Sandra is qualified to reply to David's toast. Firstly, she's the wife of Ian, who's a past president of the Rotary Club of Allan, so there's a Rotary connection there. But principally, Sandra herself is but a lassie. To reply on behalf of the Lassies, I'm delighted to call upon Sandra Valentine.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking those responsible for the fabulous food which we've all enjoyed tonight. To quote Virginia Woolf, who, like Ravi, was born on the 25th of January, another important date for your 25th of Januaries, and who was also a writer of some note. Virginia Woolf said, "One cannot think well, love well, sleep well, if one has not dined well." I don't know about the first two, but I'm sure I will sleep well tonight. Next, I'd like to thank David for his extremely erudite and appreciation of the Lassies, and the Rotary Club of Bridgevale and Dunblane for inviting me to retaliate. Oh, sorry, reciprocate. Or at least give as good as we got. On behalf of all the Lassies here tonight, of whatever vintage. So, thank you, David, for your entertaining toast. Now, David's speech was not only entertaining, but unusual, in that there aren't many men who are so eloquent. However, as I believe that he hails from Glasgow, he is, like all Ouija's, imbued with patter. Most Scottish men, however, are not so blessed when it comes to communication skills. Which reminds me of the story of the wee boy who comes home from school one day pleased as punch to tell his mother that he's got a part in the school play. "Good for you, son," says the mother. "What part is it?" "I play the Scottish husband," beams the wee boy. The mother scowls and says, "Get back to that school and tell the teacher you want a speaking part." Of course, this idea that men are strong and taciturn while women are weak and voluble is just a myth. Or is it? One Scottish husband, hoping to prove to his wife that women talk far more than men, showed her a study which indicated that men use about 15,000 words a day, whereas women use around 30,000. "Of course we do," said his wife. "That's because we have to tell you everything twice." To which the stunned husband replied, "What?" On the subject of communication, I've often thought that, like America and Britain, men and women are divided by a common language. Let me give you a few examples. And chaps, you might want to take some notes here. First of all, the word fine. This is a word that women use to end an argument when they feel that they are right and you need to shut up. Men never use this word fine to describe how a woman looks, as this will cause you to have one of those arguments. Next, the phrase 5 minutes. Now, I'm sure the more mature men here tonight will have learned long ago that 5 minutes actually means half an hour. As in, I'll be ready in 5 minutes. But since it's equivalent to the 5 minutes that you spend reading the sports page or just shutting your eyes, then it's an even trade. And finally, the word nothing. Now men, don't be fooled by this. To a woman, nothing means something. And you should be on your toes, especially if it's used in reply to the question, what's wrong? In which case, nothing usually signifies an argument that will last 5 minutes and end with fine. I could go on. But at least our language isn't complicated by gender issues, as in many European countries, where every noun is either masculine or feminine. However, it might actually be fun to attribute maleness or femaleness to various objects. How about these items? Male or female? Car tyres. Yes, male, because they go bald and are often overinflated. Swiss Army knife? No, I could be female because it can multitask, but it's more likely to be male because although it appears to be useful for a wide variety of jobs, it spends most of its time opening bottles. The photocopier. Female, because even when it's turned on, it can still take a while to warm up. Unlike most Scottish men, Robert Burns had little difficulty communicating with women. Although how much talking he did, I'm not really sure. He was certainly more successful than one elderly gent who, very well dressed, hair perfectly groomed, wearing a smart suit, flower in his lapel and smelling of expensive aftershave, strolls into a posh cocktail bar. Seated at the bar, he spies an attractive elderly lady. The gentleman walks over, sits beside her, orders a drink, takes a sip, then turns to her and says, "So, tell me, do I come here often?" Bless them, they never give up to the girls. And Rabbi Burns was definitely relentless in his pursuit of the lassies. There are Burns poems about Alison, Anna, Kate, Mary, Jeannie, Cloris, Clorinda, Nancy, Nell, Molly, Polly, Peggy, Bessie, Jessie, Eliza, Maria and Delia, to name but a few. Like many men, he obviously thought that monogamy was a kind of wood. These women are often referred to as Burns's conquests, but I'm not sure just how much conquering some of these lasses required. If you look closely at some of the bard's best-known songs and poems, a picture seems to emerge. For example, "Oh, whistle and I'll come to you, my lad. Oh, whistle and I'll come to you, my lad. Though father and mother and all should go mad. Oh, whistle and I'll come to you, my lad." Well, this strong-minded young woman was obviously willing to risk the disapproval of her family and the community to be with her lover. And she goes on, "But warily tent when you come to court me, and come there unless the back yet be a G. Sign up the back style and let naebody see, and come as you were na come to me, and come as you were na coming to me. Oh, whistle and I'll come to you, my lad." Hardly the words of a blushing innocent, issuing such explicit instructions and leaving the back door off the latch. Or what about Annie in the Rigs o' Barley? It was upon a Lammas night, when corn rigs are bonny, beneath the moon's unclouded light, I held a wall, tae Annie. Annie was there. He knew she was there. She knew he knew she was there. And the song continues. The time flew by with tentless heat, till tween the late and early, wi' small persuasion, she agreed to see me through the barley. And these lasses were clearly ready and willing, and evidently complicit in their seduction. But Burns, of course, gets the kudos for his so-called conquests, or the disapproval for his promiscuity, depending on your point of view. Then again, these songs are his account of events. As far as I'm aware, the women concerned did not write their own version of these encounters. And we know from recent comments made by former National Poet of Scotland Liz Lockhead that Burns gave a very different, decidedly less romantic account of an episode involving Jean Armour in a letter he wrote to a friend. We will never know whether the contents of this letter give an accurate depiction of the event, or whether this was just macho exaggeration, the 18th century equivalent of Trump's locker room banter. Either way, it was Jean Armour who finally pinned him down and married him, and presumably forgave him all his philandering. But then, what woman wouldn't fall for a man who could write lines like these? It isna, Jean, thy bonny face nor shape that I admire, although thy beauty and thy grace might weel awake desire. Something in ilka part to thee, O thee to praise, to love I find. But dear as is thy form to me, still dearer is thy mind. No wonder he bowled them over, eh, ladies? Who could resist a man who claimed to appreciate, if not understand, a woman's mind? Burns's relationships with women were central to his life. In fact, it was thanks to the Lassies that Burns became a poet and produced such gems as A Red, Red Rose and A Fond Kiss for various women in his life. He wrote his first poem at the age of 15. The poem is called Handsome Nell and is about his first love, a girl named Nellie Blair. Oh, once I loved a bonny lass, and I love her still. And whilst that virtue warms my breast, I'll love my handsome Nell. Later, commenting on this poem, Burns stated, I had never had the least thought or inclination of turning poet till I got once heartily in love, and then rhyme and song were, in a manner, the spontaneous language of my heart. Burns was certainly under no illusions as to women's place in the vast scheme of things, as can be seen from lines from Green Grow the Rashes Own. All nature swears the lovely dears, her noblest work she classes on. Her prentice hand she tried on man, and then she made the lasses own. Yes, chaps, man might have been the prototype, but woman is definitely the classic model. Despite his reputation as a philanderer, Burns obviously held women in high regard, as can be seen from these lines written around 1792. While Europe's eye is fixed on mighty things, the fate of empires and the fate of kings, while quacks of states must each produce his plan, and even children lisp the rights of man. Amidst this mighty fuss, just let me mention, the rights of women merit some attention. Hear, hear, well said Rabbie Burns. In the midst of such momentous events as the formation of the First French Republic and the fall of Louis XVI, Burns had time to spare a thought for the plight of women. In this respect, he was certainly a product of the age of enlightenment. And now, Europe's eye is once again fixed on mighty things. And how prescient Rabi's words sound as we watch the current quacks of state, each scrabbling to produce his or her own plan. While across the pond, we have a president whose attitude to women seems positively Neanderthal compared with Rabi's enlightened views of more than 200 years ago. Having immersed myself in Burns's poetry while preparing this reply for the Lassies, I thought I might, as my eminent colleague here did, try my hand at a bit of poetry, a bit of verse that I could dedicate to the laddies. But as I'm not very original, I base my effort on a famous poem by Rudyard Kipling, who was born about 100 years after Robert Burns, at a time when men were men and women were chaining themselves to railings and throwing themselves in front of the king's horse. Kipling's poem, which I'm sure you all know, it's the one that begins, "If you can keep your head when those around are losing theirs and blaming on you." This poem has been described as an exhortation to self-control and stoicism. So, in the same vein, but updated for the post-Weinstein era, I give you if you can keep your hands to yourself when no contact is desired, and curb the condescending comments as they're really not required, or understand our anger when we are paid much less than you, although it's 40 years since equal pay was voted through. If you can hold each of the women in your life in high esteem and understand that lads and lasses work together as a team. If you can share your doubts and worries without fear of losing face, and agree that there are times it's hard just keeping up the pace. If you can discuss your feelings and still consider yourself strong, or just listen to yourself sometimes and admit when you are wrong. If you can recognise in others the need for some support and step outside your comfort zone to go and hold the fort. If you can ask for directions when driving in the car, or even listen to the sat-nav, you really will go far. If you can order from the bar and pay with coins, keep your trouser pockets jingle-free, and mind on who asked for beer and who for pork and who the heck wanted the G&T. If you can dance with grace and flair and maybe rhythm, and whirl your partner round the floor with style, if you will have a bash at ballroom and at Latin, and pretend that you enjoy it all the while. If you can try to see yourself as others see you, yet be true to yourself until the end, then there's one thing that I can guarantee you. You will be a man, my friend. Although there are still, in this day and age, distinct advantages to being a man, there are also